Let's go, dog. Let's go, boss.
Let's go, boss. Let's go, boss.
Hey, welcome back to Anti-King, and welcome back to the only series you guys consistently watch, horror you probably slept on. Today we're covering the Netflix horror Girl on the Third Floor. It comes from the same producers that created my all-time favorite horror movie, We Are Still Here. And much like that movie, Girl on the Third Floor is a refreshing take on the stale haunted house genre, so I was really excited to dive into this one. Did it live up to my incredibly lofty expectations? No. Long script, let's go. The movie starts with an opening credit sequence that shows the current state of the house, including some pretty sweet wallpaper and a pretty dangerous nail, before a good boy comes bursting through the front door. Behind him is accomplished wrestler and this film's main protagonist, CM Punk. His character, Donald Don Coke, is a man trying desperately to escape his criminal past, trading his old life in for one in the suburbs. He calls out for good boy Cooper as he runs up the stairs. Upstairs, he heads into a room with a mysterious puddle that he starts lapping up. Aw, Coop, gross, dude. Don sets some stuff down and cracks a cold one before discovering a black stain on his pink walls.
Who paints a room pink?
He touches it to investigate and his hand slips right through, revealing a black sludge that's used heavily throughout as a symbol of an inescapable darkness. Something Don can certainly relate. Meanwhile, Coop is staring into a dark closet in one of the rooms when Don's hammering downstairs begins to knock some dust loose until eventually, a marble falls out of the closet and rolls across the floor. But being stopped short when Coop shows up to snag it once again. We get a montage of Don cleaning up the house before he comes across a small puddle of what appears to be semen, complete with condom. At least the house is practicing safe sex. He cleans up the jizz. Can't say jizz. I'll say it. He cleans up the jizz and gets right back to work. Who wrote this? Before eventually being interrupted by one of the most alarming doorbells of all time. At the door is a lady with a glass and a bottle of bourbon. The two sit on the porch and talk for a bit. He tells her they're moving in because they needed a little elbow room, as Don's married and his wife has a child on the way. She explains that she's been a pastor at the nearby church since '84. Oh. And that her door is always open if they care to learn more about her religion. Don wakes up to a FaceTime from his wife Liz, who he calls Bunny. Aww. After discussing the renovations for a bit, Liz asks if he wants her to hire some professionals, and he politely declines. You can tell something about fixing this house feels particularly redemptive for Don. Unfortunately, Don's a deeply flawed man, and immediately lies to his wife about a beer bottle in the background.
Trying to help you.
Don watches a YouTube tutorial about fixing drywall before gearing up to face that hole once again. He puts some Converge on in his headphones and gets to work. As he goes to patch the wall, however, the drill's battery suddenly stops working. He goes to plug it in, but the house stops him a little, prematurely. The house is like, "This never happens, I swear to God, you're just so hot and it's been a long time." Also, why when he sees liquid coming out of an electric socket, does he immediately go and touch it? He plugs in the drill battery and then immediately steps on a marble. He has a short chat with his lawyer, which really only serves to give you more context on Don's backstory, before we get more renovation scenes, this time with Don hammering at a wall. Fixing some holes, making more. Do you want holes or not, Don? Don discovers the hole is filled with old newspapers and a frilly dress, as well as an old wig or something. Don heads out for the night with a warning for Coop.
Don't shit in the house.
Man, fuck you.
He arrives to an empty bar/bowling alley before eventually the owner/bartender/pen jockey comes shuffling out. Don sits down for a drink and a bite to eat and explains to the man that he just recently moved in. After telling him which house it was, the bartender asks Don if he's gay and explains how the house seems to be bad news for straight men.
You got a real fucked up way of welcoming people to the neighborhood, Gary.
Don returns home and calls out for Cooper, searching the house when he doesn't respond. He's just trying to warn you about the ghost in the hallway. The next day, Don is working on the kitchen sink when some black sludge erupts from the pipes. He walks outside to wash it off when he's interrupted by a woman's voice. It's a short introduction before she disappears and he's back to sludge duty. After cleaning up the mess, he reaches up into the burst pipe and pulls out a single marble. We get another sick needle drop, this time courtesy of Neurosis, as Don goes on a morning jog. He gets back home and preps for a shower only to find the water isn't working. It's instead filled with that gooey liquid again. Is this house a teenager? What's the deal? I'm sorry. He takes a facial and gets wrapped up in a shower curtain, hearing a woman's laugh in the background. We then see him painting the pink room again, with the same results as before. He moves on to another room before hearing Coop bark outside. He looks out to see Coop being pet by the woman from earlier. He goes down to confront her, but is softened by her good looks and offers of dubs.
Life
is a stage.
Correct.
Smoke weed until you die.
That's right.
He gives her the tour before she eventually tries to seduce him, leaning in and kissing him before Coop interrupts. He shuts the door on Coop and does the deed as the ghost girl dances with glee in the other room. He walks her out post-coitus and says his goodbyes, returning inside to a very disappointed Coop. He's explaining himself to his dog when he hears a thunderous crash from upstairs. They run upstairs to investigate and have found the ceiling has completely caved in the room he just had sex in, revealing some kinky gallery seating. Don goes to the attic to investigate as Coop barks at an unseen entity. The next day, he video calls Bunny and shows her the damages. She chastises him for not seeing the bleachers during the appraisal, which clearly bugs him. In each of these calls, she's expressed doubt about his ability to get the job done, which, as I noted earlier, he takes personally. Later, as he's cleaning the room, he hears a knock on the back door and finds Sarah, the hot girl that did the seducing earlier. She tries to get some more sweet loving, but he sends her away, feeling guilty for his past transgressions. That night, Don is sleeping when Coop hears a noise off screen and investigates. Before long, Don's wife Bunny enters the room and wakes him up. They begin to have sex as Bunny transforms back and forth between herself and Sarah and finally a lacerated lady before some more goo wakes him up.
Sometimes I dream.
The next day, Don's friend Milo comes to the house to help Don patch the ceiling. After a hard day's work, they go to a local bar to tie one off. The next day, hungover, Don tells Milo he needs some coffee, and Milo lets him know his assistant has already made some. Don walks into the kitchen to find who else but Sarah again, fresh coffee in hand. Understandably spooked, Don lays into Sarah, telling her to never come back to his house. Milo overhears and eventually Don is forced to reveal his affair. Don begs him not to tell as Milo chastises him for being a cheater. Don gets upset and decides to leave, and Milo goes back to painting. A marble rolls into the room and past him. He follows it as it leads him into the basement. Sarah emerges from the shadows and spooks Milo. He asks her to leave, and she responds by nailing him in the eye with a mallet. He attempts to crawl to safety before seeing the lacerated girl on his way up the stairs. Sarah catches up with him and bludgeons him off screen. Don returns home later that night and assumes Milo left when he doesn't find him at the house. The next day on FaceTime, Bunny sees Sarah in the background. He searches the house and finds nothing, but does find the back door open. He ends the call with Bunny and we see him installing new locks the next day. The pastor shows up with some more cryptic messages for Don before we cut to later that night and the house awkwardly spewing yet another marble for Coop to chase down. It leads him to the basement where Sarah greets him. An off-screen yelp lets us know something bad has happened, as Don wakes up. He searches the house for Coop before hearing the dryer going. He goes to check what's in it and yeah, it's Coop. Dead dog. Sad dog.
Sad dog.
He files a police report the next day against Sarah, but the police predictably can't do much to help. Dejected, he sits and has a beer before a green marble rolls up to him. Sarah appears in the doorway, and Don apologizes for all of his transgression. He tells her he's got her a gift and that it's in the kitchen. As she walks into the kitchen, Don comes up behind her and hits her in the head with the mallet that killed Milo. He cleans up the mess and takes the corpse to the basement. Bunny calls him and asks him why Milo called, causing Don to freak out and hang up on her. He goes back to the basement to find Sarah's body missing, only to hear footsteps coming from upstairs. He chases the slightest glimpse of a figure up there, finding himself at the closet door once again. He opens it and finds nothing before heading into the attic. There, he finds a mysterious wall and breaks through. He finds an entire secret room, filled with marbles and decorated with crude sexual drawings on the walls. The next day, Don peels some wallpaper, drills a hole, and runs a miniature camera through it, giving us some excellent shots of inside the wall. He eventually lands on a lacerated girl and bails out of fear. In a panic, he takes a mallet to the wall, finding a beating heart behind it. He continues beating down the wall, each swing causing an eruption somewhere in the house. Eventually, he finds Milo's corpse. He runs back to grab his phone where he finds a message from Milo, but in reality, it's just Sarah taunting him. Cabinets and drawers start slamming over and over before lacerated girl emerges from a dresser and drops a marble that embeds itself within Don, traveling up his leg and throughout his body as he uses a box cutter to try and cut it out. All the while, lacerated girl stands in the doorway laughing. She approaches and unleashes several more marbles before we cut to black in the next day, with Bunny arriving at the house. She calls out for Don and Coop to no avail. She finds the house in disarray with all the holes in the wall from earlier. She reaches into one of the holes to find an old newspaper describing a police raid on the property searching for a dead girl's body back when the house was still a brothel. She finds herself in the basement a short time later where she finds a single marble. She heads back upstairs before running into Sarah, who tells her she's been helping Don. She creepily feels on Bunny's belly before being interrupted by the pastor at the door asking to talk. Bunny invites her in, but the pastor insists on chatting outside. She asks about her and Dawn's marriage, and tells her the house tends to bring out the worst in people. Bunny assures her they'll be fine, and we cut to later where she's creeped out by an eye in the sink, and decides to seek out the pastor for help. Bunny explains her and Dawn's troubled past, and the pastor explains how the house has a way of testing men, and that the end result comes down to the character of the men making those decisions. She tells Bunny to get her baby and her husband far away from that house. And we cut to that night, back at the house. Bunny opens the door to find some random men in suits walking upstairs and assumes Dawn must be back. She runs into Sarah, who tells her this is a party and that Dawn is somewhere upstairs. She walks upstairs where she's told to head into the attic as the show has already started. She finds herself in the same gallery seating, looking down on the bedroom from before, watching a man in a bird mask whip Sarah's nude body. Upset, she storms downstairs and makes her way into the room, only to find the ceiling intact and the performers gone. She accidentally kicks a marble, causing it to roll under the closet door. She flees the room but runs into Sarah on her way down the stairs. Sarah explains she worked at the brothel and was a star. Yet, when she was murdered, none of the men questioned it or bothered to look for her. Her body never left the house.
All men really love is the power you give them.
Sarah chases Bunny with a box cutter, but she makes it into the room just in time, slamming Sarah out behind her. The green marble rolls back out from the closet, and the door slowly starts to open. Out crawls Dawn, covered in deep slashes all over his body. Dawn explains that he cheated on her once again, and offers an apology, telling her this time it'll be different. Bunny refuses to accept his apology as she attempts to unlock the door. Dawn then takes the box cutter and slices himself vertically from the head down over his face. He then begins to peel open his skin at the cut, brutally ripping away his entire head to reveal Sarah laughing maniacally underneath. Bunny escapes out of the house and has a talk with the pastor on the porch, who explains it was up to Dawn to make a decision whether or not to cheat. And when he chose to cheat, it then became her choice whether or not to forgive. She passed the test by choosing not to forgive Dawn. We then see Bunny retrieve Sarah's corpse out of the wall of the house and give it a proper burial. We cut to sometime later as Bunny lays her and Dawn's baby down for a nap. Looking up at the vent, we see a glimpse of Dawn as he drops a single marble into the crib. Alright, that was Girl on the Third Floor. For those that missed the last episode, this season of Slept On has a different rating? This season has a different rating system, where I now rate these movies only on 4 things: gore, suspense, score, and story. Not in that order, let's go. To me, obviously this story has been done before. Murder victim reaches out from beyond the grave to be properly laid to rest. It switches that formula up a little bit, and you can definitely feel the We Are Still Here influence. But that being said, I don't think the story is particularly this movie's strong suit. 6 out of 10. The movie does do a wonderful job of building tension in the earlier acts, but it kind of fizzles when it really could have been used. The movie and its creators are clearly very capable of ratcheting up the tension when they need to, but I don't think they did enough of this in the last part of the movie. 7 out of 10. Between the dope metal and punk needle drops and the tense atmospheric synth pads packed into this movie, 10 out of 10. It's important to remember that the gore rating includes any kind of special makeup effect as well. And Lacerated Girl was awesome. Milo's eye was awesome, all the scenes with Dawn trying to remove the marble. While there isn't a ton of gore here, it's all done super effectively, done practically for the most part. And all the cool house effects with like the weird goo and blood and stuff, the sludge, that's all included here too. It was all really cool stuff. 9 out of 10. Alright, so 32 out of 40 gives us an 80%, which is slightly lower than last episode's Antlers. All in all, Girl on the Third Floor certainly has its flaws. CM Punk is not the best actor, and the story isn't exactly breaking ground. However, it is a fun foray into an interesting study on trust and the integrity of people when we aren't looking. That and the gore and special effects make it worth the watch alone. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Every subscribe equals 1 house shot. Do I have to censor that? If you like this video, maybe check out the video covering We Are Still Here, my favorite horror movie of all time. Aesthetically has a lot in common with this movie, although that's about it. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, stay safe. Donald Don Cock. Is it Cock or Coke? I can't. It's been so long. It's got to be Coke, right?